Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Today I'm going to look at the Chaos Vindicator. So this is a unit that's been around for a long time, one in both the sort of traitor and loyalist variants of Space Marines. So it's good to go back to sort of a very old unit that's had a lot of history when it comes to the 40k universe. How this works, I'm going to have a look at the stats of the unit itself, war gear options, abilities that can be used on them. Then I'm going to have a look at loadout and role suggestions for the unit, Legion traits where applicable, psychic abilities and stratagems as well. So with that, let's have a look at the Chaos Vindicator. So the Chaos Vindicator does deteriorate in terms of some of its stats when it does take damage. It starts from movement 10, which is kind of what you expect for, I think, like rhinos and things, roughly, maybe a bit slower, to movement 3 at lower efficiency. So from movement 10 to 3 is a huge wallop in slowness, and certainly with some of its ranged of weapons being quite small, that can be a real pain. Ballistic skill does deteriorate from 3 at peak efficiency to 5 at the lowest, meaning its reliability in terms of actually hitting certainly goes down as well. And its attacks, which you don't really mind about because this guy ain't hitting at all in combat, goes from 3 to D3 to 1 at lowest efficiency. But trust me, you don't care about that. In terms of other stats, weapon skill is 6+, so those attacks, they're not really going to hit anyway, but you're okay with that. Strength 6, fine, yep, you don't want to be in combat, so no problem. Toughness 8, you know, because of that big shield in front of it, they've decided to give an extra toughness, which should make it a lot more survivable. Minus being hit by, like, say, a last cannon does mean that most things are going to wound on 4s or 5s, which certainly does make it a bit more survivable. So yeah, pretty good on that side. Weapon wounds 11, so slightly less than the sort of Forge Fiends and Mauler Fiends, and a lot less than Defiler, but kind of the same as sort of other units that are similar with type. I think it's 1 more than a Rhino. Attacks, as said, we don't really mind. Leadership 8, minus psychic stuff, that should be okay. 3+ save, which is alright itself. So the Chaos Vindicator is armed with 1 weapon. It can have a combi weapon or a Havoc Launcher shoved on it as well if you doth wish, but its main weapon is the Demolisher Cannon. So Demolisher Cannon is range 24, heavy D3, strength 10, minus 3 AP, D6 damage. When attacking units with 5 or more models, change this weapon type to heavy D6. Yeah, just to say on the Demolisher Cannon, as that's his main weapon, heavy D3 does mean that it's really difficult. You might not get super reliability from it. D6 if you shoot against things that are 5 or more, which some things that may be applicable, yeah, sure. Primaris, Wraiths taken in a bigger unit, Custodes maybe, etc. You know, you can do quite well there. But generally having random amount of shots and random amount of damage is... it's a bit tough on that side, but it is a mighty strength 10 and minus 3 AP, so you're wounding things quite reliably and you're getting through armour quite reliably as well. So in terms of abilities, smoke launchers once per game instead of shooting any weapons in the shooting phase. This model can use its smoke launchers until your next shooting phase. Your opponent must subtract 1 from all hit rolls for ranged weapons that target the vehicle, and explodes if this model is reduced to 0 wounds. Roll a d6 before removing the model from battlefield. On a 6 explodes, and each unit within 6 inches suffers d3 mortal wounds. So yeah, that's kind of the Vindicator there, you know, pretty simple unit. You know, 1 gun, and you can add in a combi weapon or Havoc. Don't add plasma gun, combi plasma, you supercharge it, you die. If you roll a 1, which is not ideal. So yeah, maybe avoid that. I'm 90% sure if you add a combi plasma to like any vehicle and you roll a 1 when you supercharge it, it dies. You know, it's not, you know, you lose a wound, you die, you slay it. So I highly advise you don't, unless you want to live dangerously. So yeah, in terms of loadout and suggested role for the Chaos Vindicator. Chaos Vindicator is kind of simple unit as it only has 1 main weapon, and you can choose, as I said, the Havoc Launcher or combi weapon if you want. But let's speak about the Demolisher Cannon itself. So the Demolished Cannoner does have mighty stats in some ways, strength 10, minus 3 AP, d6 damage per one of them, which in itself is a bit terrifying. However, it does have sort of two major weaknesses. One is its short range. 24 inches means, you know, you're going to have to reach out to get to the target you want to hit. Likely means in turn 1 you're going to have to move forwards to hit any target, and especially ones in the backfield you might want to target more, which means instantly you're probably looking at -1 to hit. And the second one is the random amount of shots that you get. D3 against anything that's 5 or less models means that, you know, smaller squads or vehicles or single unit stuff that have loads of wounds that you want to fire the Demolisher cannon at are not going to be nearly as threatened. Sure, there's going to be squads that are like bigger than 5 models, which, yeah, the D6 might be really good, and then you can use other units to pepper them down. So you use, like, say it's a big unit of, I don't know, Primaris, you know, there's 5 in the squad, and you go, right, Demolish Cannon, take out 3 of them, and then use auto cannons or something to take out the last 2. Cool. You might do a wee bit there, but then you've got things like Centurions or Custodes, which may be only units of 3, in which case you kind of half in your shots immediately, which is not ideal, even though you love to fire the Demolisher at things like Centurions or vehicles in general, but you're only getting D3 shots. So yeah, that's kind of it when it comes to, you know, the Vindicator. The Demolisher's kind of where it's all at, and its random amount of, you know, attacks, random damage is not the most ideal, and even if you do get high, it's kind of still a low amount of shots. Not so ideal. Legion traits. Now, for some reason, Marines, etc., Custodes, both, you know, Loyalist Marines and Traitor Marines, their vehicles don't get Legion traits, which is a bit unusual. But I do like to speak about speculatory for which ones would be beneficial, because loads of different armies do get the Legion traits, but Marines of that variety do not. So yeah, let's have a look at the ones speculating that might help. Alpha Legion, hidden in plain sight. Your opponent must subtract 1 from hit rolls that target units with this trait if they're more than 12 inches away. So having 24-inch guns means it's a little bit hard to pull off, as you still need to get a wee bit close, but its impressive defense capabilities at toughness 8 would be a -1 to hit, would be really nice as well. Iron Warriors, Siege Lords, enemy units attacked by this unit with this trait do not gain any bonus to their saving throw for being in cover. In addition, you can reroll failed wound rolls for the unit with this trait when they target a building. This one is kind of made for Vindicator. I mean, it's -3 AP, but being able to ignore cover helps significantly reduce the saves of any of its targets. Also with the stratagem that if a player goes second and they get to give their whole army cover for 2 command points, it pretty much goes, nah, you can't use that, not going to happen. Not going to happen, you know. And don't be that guy, I think I've said this before, don't be, you know, that person who goes, cool, spend that 2 command points, spend it, right, you've spent it, cool, I ignore them. And don't be that, you know, don't do that, don't make your opponent waste 2 command points, you know, or do. I'm not going to judge you, but your friends might. Anyway, so either way, in this case, it's not going to matter, because you don't benefit from the ignore cover with the Vindicator or the Alpha Legion, because you don't get Legion rolls. But it'd be nice if you did. Psychic abilities, Prescience, Warp Charge 7. If manifested, select a heretic stash unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. You can add 1 to hit rolls made for the unit until the start of your next Psychic phase. While having this on a Vindicator will mean you will hit on a 2+, which, if you stay still, may seem good. It could mean you only get 2+ with 1 shot and 6 at the best. Simply put, this is probably better on a whole bunch of other units, like a whole bunch, to get more reliability and more attacks hitting on +1. If you really need the Vindicator to hit on a +1, then yeah, it may help, but nearly everything else in this codex is going to benefit from this more. Yeah. Death X, Warp Charge 8. If manifested, select a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of the next Psych phase, that unit cannot take invul saves. So not an augment, but certainly this is probably a great help for the Vindicator when facing things like Wraiths, which survive a lot on their invul save, being able to mitigate them straight away, or Custodes, is going to help a lot. High invul saves are the bane of weapons like this, and I know personally I love taking wraiths and units of 5 or 6. It means that if I then get Death Hexed, I mean, I always hate getting my wraiths like Death Hexed or Null Zoned or something. Just means that some of these heavy hitter stuff are going to absolutely start wiping them if they don't have access to a 3-up invul. Next up is Delightful Agonies, Warp Charge 6, Mark of Slaanesh only. If manifested, select a visible Slaanesh Heretic Osiris unit within 18 inches. Until the start of your next psychic phase, roll a d6 each time a model in that unit loses a wound. On a 5+, it does not lose that wound. Yeah. So with a toughness of 8, this will be a frustrating vehicle to wound. Being able to ignore a further 1/3 of these wounds is just going to make it really, really hard to bring down. So yeah, Delightful Agonies might be good in this to make a very frustrating unit. Stratagem recommendations. So first one's going to be Blasphemous Machines. Cost 1 command point. Use the stratagem just before a Heretic Osiris vehicle attacks in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, that vehicle can ignore the penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, for advancing and firing assault weapons. Vindicators are likely to move in the first turn to get into range, which is a pain. This simply will help mitigate that. Maybe not ideal because low amounts of shots. You might be better off just keeping a command point, and then if you do get, you know, like say a 3 when you've been put to 4, then just reroll then if you need to. You're sort of just hedging your bets here. You may even get 1 shot and still hit a 6, but you've wasted a command point there anyway. Handy to have, but not hugely recommended. Last one is going to be the sort of Vindicator special stratagem, which is Linebreaker Bombardment. Cost 1 command point. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase if a Legion Chaos Vindicator is within 6 inches of 2 other friendly Legion Chaos Vindicators. If you do so, the Vindicators cannot fire Demolisher cannons this phase. Now, support says that's the only thing you really can't do. Instead, select a visible point on the battlefield within 24 inches of all 3 vehicles. Roll a dice for each unit within 3 inches of that point. Add 1 to the result if the unit being rolled for has 10 or more models. Subtract 1 if the unit being rolled for is a character. On a 4+, that unit suffers 3d3 mortal wounds. Super interesting stratagem. It is fairly large investment, putting in nearly 400 points to be able to even pull this off. Still, being able to pull out that many possible mortal wounds may be quite scary. In large games this will be very useful because there's going to be more units affected by it. The problem is that all it takes is to destroy 1 Vindicator and then there's no more stratagem. Maybe in smaller games this may be better because in smaller games it's not so easier to bring down a Vindicator quickly. Other advantages is that you can, as far as I'm aware, I've not seen this in the FAQ, you can move you can move and you don't need to roll to hit or to wound, and I think you can even activate smoke launchers to give yourself a defense buff on all the Vindicators, and you can still use the stratagem. Heck, even if one of them is down to 1 wound and you've still got them all within the range, you can still use the stratagem and still reliably put out all those mortal wounds. So yeah, if you brought 3 Vindicators, now I've never seen it done in a battle report I've been in, then yeah, 1 command point is not bad. But I think in big games you're reliably going to have at least your opponent see what you're trying to do, and they're going to be like, ha, no chance mate, and bring down at least 1 of them. Or in smaller games, you've got a large amount of points you've got to invest in because it is still just under 400 points you've got to invest in to the Vindicators, in which case then just throw out mortal wounds, but your opponent might then go, right, spread out, don't let you get as many mortal wounds as you can. Though I have had like a bombardment in a narrative game and I lost like both my characters. If you've not seen the I've just done a huge spoiler for like the Elder Tal campaign, which was like 2 months ago. There's one where I get a bombardment on every one of my units, and oh boy, oh, that was terrible. If you've ever seen the campaign we did and you saw that one before the game started, oh man, flashbacks. So yeah, Chaos Vindicator, interesting unit. One saving grace on it, I would say in this, is that it's quite cheap for its points. It is quite cheap, but you're getting a cheap unit that I believe can't do so much. It's got no bad survivability and it's got some firepower on it, but you know, it's one of those ones that I just don't think it might make its points pack when it does well, and when it does bad, it's gonna do bad. So yeah, that is my thoughts on the Chaos Vindicator. Very interested to hear what people say. It is a old unit, one that has been around the game for so long in both the Space Marine and Chaos Space Marine format, so I would really like to hear what people have to say with it. Please comment, share, like and subscribe, and check us out on social media and Patreon, where you want to see the current projects we're working on, because we have a few armies in production at the moment. And we also have, you can also come on Patreon and support us so we can bring more content to you guys, which we absolutely love because it's a lot of fun, and it's always good to get support from everyone as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you in another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.